Hello, everybody. So there's some stuff I forgot to mention about my experiences on the farm, some of which is kind of important. So I'm gonna try to cover that. First of all, what did they believe? What was the actual tenets of their religion or whatever? So first of all, Stephen was their guru, their spiritual guide, obviously. Stephen Gaskin. And he identified as a pantheist. A pantheist believes that God is everything and everything is God. So I'm God, you're God, the trees are God, the grass is God, the river is God, and so forth. Everything that exists is God, which on one occasion, Stephen said, I used to be an agnostic, but I'm not anymore. He believed in God, but that's what he meant. And that resonates with some forms of Hinduism, especially in Vedanta. But as a metaphor, it definitely works. As an actual theology, it really doesn't, because when you say, I believe in God and God is everything that exists, then all you're really saying is, I believe that everything that exists exists. Some forms of Vedanta have a more sophisticated ideal, which make more sense. But this one kind of really doesn't. All right. So going back to earlier when I was still, the earlier part of my stay when I still identified as a Christian and a member of the Children of God, which, by the way, they have some music videos up that are pretty interesting. Look them up if you want. And a bit disturbing. Okay. During that period, I had a friend, another imported teen. He was 19, but definitely part of, the resistance, the rebellion among the farm teens, because he was also imported. He also arrived while, he didn't grow up there, is what I mean. And he had a girlfriend there on the farm that was 14. I don't know if they were having sex or not. He was getting a little heat for it. And one woman said, once you both get up in the ages, people will cut loose of all that kind of stuff, which is true. But also, both on and off the farm, those kinds of age discrepancies were generally tolerated in a way that they're really not anymore. They're looked upon as much worse a much worse phenomena. Anywho, he said, so you're a Christian? I said, yes. He said, well, that's a good thing to be. But then maybe on another occasion, he said, so what does your group, what is your vision? What do you want the world to be like if like everyone converted? And he said, well, there would be godly socialism. It would be led by a prophet, somebody selected by God. And people would go back to the lands doing agriculture again. And so he said, because that sounds a lot like here. So we have a form of socialisms, and we are led by a guy who claims to be a spiritual leader. And we did go back to the land and primarily practice agriculture. So if that's what you believe, well, this is it. And since you don't like what's here, I suggest you change your beliefs. And that kind of struck me, and that was probably planted a seed for why eventually I did change my beliefs and cease to identify with that group. Okay, so I had after Mark and Vivian left, I more or less my best friend was another 14-year-old named Gus, and his family came to visit in a trailer. His parents and his older brother. I went into the trailer and they made me some eggs, which of course are forbidden. And when I told him that, he said, "Wow, this is like smuggling Bibles into Russia," the older brother said. And it kind of was. But I'm glad I liked the eggs. And so they were lecturing Gus, his parents were, and they said, "Well, I know that you don't like it here on the farm so much. You don't like it very much, but I think you should stick it out for a while longer, because what you need to do is to learn to stick things out and to persevere, and then you'll be stronger. You'll say, well, the farm wasn't so great, but I stuck it through. I triumphed, And his older brother said, George Wallace, to which his mother said, you can leave. George Wallace was a far-right politician at the time, so I can see why they were offended by the comparison. By the way, his parents truly were basically not good parents. I'll get to that in a bit. But so Sunday services came up, and I got a hold of some marijuana and smoked it, and I didn't feel like going to services, so I didn't. I just hung out somewhere. But and when services ended, a woman came up to me and said, did you go to services today? And I lied and said, yes. She said, wasn't it heavy? And I said, yes. So later I found out what had actually been said. Gus's parents had said, well, our son, Gus, is one of the teenagers that lives here, and he says it's really not a good place at all. And Stephen Gaskin said, well, Gus isn't so bad, but he's been hanging out with Ethan, and Ethan's been whining and complaining since he came through the gate. So he totally put me on blast in front of the 1,100 residents, most of them, and a bunch of visitors as well, just like he had done to that poor, 11 or 12-year-old girl who had been caught doing some sort of sexual experimenting. He put her on blast in front of everybody, which isn't which is worse than what happened to me, because but I think, since there was no privacy, they would hear us when we complained. And maybe it's my Jewish upbringing, but I think that people have not only a right, but a need to complain. We got to complain. So we got to get things out of our system. And there's a word now for people who don't want to allow that to happen and only want to let you be positive. And it's called toxic positivity. So That's what it was. Toxic positivity, although they were free to be very negative about somebody's behavior and tell them all about it, which somehow was not considered to be whining or complaining. But when I did it, it seemed like it was. Double standard. Anyhow, so then I got kicked off the farm. Later, I went and visited Gus and his family who lived in the San Fernando Valley. I spent a weekend there. He was like still 14 or 15, as was I. And his parents had kicked him out of the house for a while. And they told me that, and they said, but you can stay in the house. And I'm thinking, what kind of friend would do that? And I said, no. He also had a younger sister, maybe 11. And apparently she was being kicked out of the house and grounded at the same time. And I told Gus, well, you can't kick someone out and ground them at the same time, which traps them in. And he said, well, they did. She has to sleep in the yard. She can neither enter the house nor leave the property. She has to stay in the yard. And that's what my parents do because they're a-holes. So we found a cave. We slept there. We talked. We thought we saw a UFO and then basically realized it was a satellite or something. Anyway, we had a pretty good time. We didn't have any food, except I had some banana chips, so I shared those for breakfast. I think I tried to harvest a prickly pear, and the little spines got into my fingers, which is the pain in the ass thing about prickly pears if you don't harvest them right. So yeah, I thought that little those little details were worth mentioning. So I did, and this is going to be a comparatively shorty for a change. Have a good one, everybody.